Welcome back. I'm now joined by the outgoing Minister of Power, Jyotiraditya Scindia, Rajya Sabha MP from the Shiromani Akali Dal, Naresh Gujral, as well as, of course, BJP National Executive Member, Sheshadri Chari. Mr. Scindia, your party has been reduced to less than 50 seats in the Lok Sabha. In 8 states, you scored a complete duck. Your numbers are so small, you won't even qualify to be the officially recognized opposition. Isn't this Congress Mukt Bharat?
Well, first of all, Karan, through your show, I'd like to congratulate the BJP and the NDA for a well-fought election and for their resounding victory. It's very clear that the people of India have reposed their trust in the BJP and the NDA. And certainly as a citizen of this country, I do hope that the next 5 years we will see good governance at play. With regard to your question, it surely is a huge debacle for us in the Congress. Clearly, there are huge gaps in our strategy, in our performance over the last 5 years. And I think we need to seriously not only introspect, Karan, but also need to take very clear-cut steps after molding a strategy to be able to go down to the grassroots once again and win back the trust of the people. It's a long, arduous task ahead of us and a long, arduous path ahead of us, but we are willing to walk down that path to win back the trust of the people.
Now, I'm also joined by the outgoing Minister of State for Human Resource Development, who is in fact the newly elected MP from Thiruvananthapuram, a seat that he's won for the second time, Shashi Tharoor. There he is on your screen. Mr. Tharoor, you've won Thiruvananthapuram, but if you look at the map of urban India, your party has been virtually decimated in urban India. You've lost all 7 seats in Delhi, all 6 in Bombay. You've been virtually effectively eliminated from Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad. You had nothing in Calcutta. And yet urban India in 2009 was one area which voted Congress back to power. Do you accept that in the process of governance over the last 5 years, you've actually alienated a critical support base?
I think it's very clear that we haven't done very well in urban India over the last few years, and at the same time that the cities you mentioned are not all within the same basket. That there were obviously local factors at play. In Chennai, the dominance of the IADMK; in Calcutta, the dominance of the TMC; in Hyderabad, the specific circumstance of the TRS benefiting from the Telangana wave rather than us, and so on and so forth. So there were also local factors, but I grant you that we have clearly not been able to hold on to the trusting, aspirational urban voter who clearly hoped for better from us than he believes he got, or he and she believe they got in the course of the last 5 years. To some degree, that is also the result of the global recession of which we were a victim. I'm sorry?
Naresh Gujral, there's no doubt that Mr. Modi today can have a smile of satisfaction that he's come close to achieving what he calls Congress Mukt Bharat. But you're a very different entity. Your father was a Congress minister. He served in Indira Gandhi's cabinet before he broke with her and went on to join other governments and other parties. How do you, as the son of a former illustrious congressman, look upon the decimation of the Congress party today? Do you have a sense of regret that a party that ruled the country for so many years, brought it independence, has been brought so low?
I think these were two different parties, the one that you talked about earlier and the party that exists today. Unfortunately, the way the party functioned in the last 5 years, they created a huge leadership deficit at the center. Power was one side, and responsibility was with somebody else. The poor Prime Minister was shouldering all the responsibility, but he was made powerless. Time and again, he was humiliated by the Vice President of the Congress Party. You would recall how that ordinance that was passed by the Cabinet was torn up and the Prime Minister had to take it back. So this created a huge leadership vacuum, and people of India wanted to see strong Prime Minister and strong leadership at the center. And I think that is the reason Congress party has been decimated today at the center.
Jyotiraditya Scindia, you were a prominent member of that government that's now been voted out. You were Minister of State with independent charge for power. Do you accept that the leadership issue was a critical problem, and that in the eyes of the Indian people, you were a weak government that failed to lead effectively at a time when the country wanted strong, decisive government?
Well, first of all, I'd just want to tell my good friend Mr. Naresh Gujral, I think in defeat, I think it's important to express humility, but similarly in victory. I think before he goes into analyzing and dissecting the Congress party, he must do the same with his party in Punjab, which he has very so eloquently done on another channel where I heard him before he came onto this channel, where too, when he talks about centralization of power, there you have one family controlling the reins of power in Punjab altogether. But I don't want to, at this point of time, on this day, get into arguments of that kind. I am very clear that this is a day for the BJP and for the NDA, and I'd like to extend my congratulations to every member of that coalition. What we need to do internally in our party is for us to be concerned about. We certainly take that very seriously. I do not think, Karan, that tonight I can give you one recipe or one reason for the debacle. There are multiple reasons. I can think of one or two, but I haven't applied my mind at this point. But surely we need to do that and take action based on a very clear game plan. But I don't think that you can fairly and squarely blame this debacle on one or two reasons. There are a myriad reasons which we need to get into.
Can I put one more question
rebuild the
to you?
party.
Can I put one more question to you before I go to Shashi Tharoor and Seshadri Chari? I accept that there are multiple reasons that account for your decimation. But at the end of the day, there is a well-established convention that when a party goes down so badly, much like a cricket team when it gets defeated over a series badly, the man at the top takes moral responsibility, resigns and moves on to give the party or the team a clear chance to find another leader and change its fortunes. Have you come close to that moment in Congress?
I don't think that's the case, Karan, because I don't think it's a one-step panacea that's going to be the solution for all the ailments. I think in Sonia Gandhi ji and Rahul Gandhi ji, we have inspirational leadership. We have leadership that has a very clear path in terms of a vision for India. Clearly, there are many problems, and we need to confront those problems. And we need to ensure that we have an efficient system that will take us back to the grassroots, because certainly we have lost connection with the grassroots, and I would be being facetious if I would deny that on your show tonight. And I think we need to rebuild those links and rebuild those connections with the grassroots, number one. Number two, what I can tell you tonight is certainly we need to build leadership at the grassroots level. We need to build leadership at the state level. I don't think a party in today's politics of India can survive on only central leadership. I think we need to build leadership in our states, which for many reasons we've not been able to over the last decade. And we need to strengthen and build those leaderships so that we can then deliver to the central party in the elections as well. So
now,
these are one or two of the reasons, but there are myriad reasons that we need to get into.
Shashi Tharoor, you were nodding your head vigorously when in fact Jyotiraditya Scindia was talking about the many reasons why the Congress party had lost. And I couldn't help notice that you were clearly in agreement. Share with the audience one or two of the reasons why you think your party has fallen so precipitously. After all, in 2006, the BJP looked a party on the ropes. You looked victorious. In 5 short years, not only has the situation been reversed, but you're less than a half of what you were in 2009, and they've more than doubled themselves. So give me 2 or 3 reasons why you think this happened.
Right. Well, I think one is obviously anti-incumbency. We have an interesting situation in our country where, the U.S. House of Representatives, the U.S. Congress has a re-election rate of 96%, and the Lok Sabha has an average re-election rate of 26%. So we have anti-incumbency hardwired into our democracy. People tend to vote against incumbents. And so, in fact, our raising our tally in 2009 was the aberration. And this year we should have expected to lose some seats, but obviously not quite so many seats. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, why did we lose so many seats more than perhaps we might automatically have lost, given the historical patterns of anti-incumbency?
What's your answer to that question?
We certainly suffered from being tarnished with the stick of, I'm going through that. So a second factor was being tarnished by the charge of corruption. And the fact is, again, that corruption is endemic in our society. There is no particular party that has a monopoly on either virtue or graft. And certainly the Congress party can rightly claim to be the one party that has taken decisive action, even when merely charges have been leveled of corruption, where ministers have had to step down without any formal indictment, where chief minister has lost his job, and yet a party like Mr. Modi's, which in Gujarat has 3 serving cabinet ministers who have not only been charged but convicted of corruption, but are serving as ministers pending appeal, that such a party should benefit from Congress being tarnished by corruption is particularly ironic. But that has also happened to us.
You sound as if you're now
A
finding
third
fault
factor
with the
was
Indian
undoubtedly
people.
price rise and inflation.
You sound now as if you're finding fault with the Indian people that they
The
can't.
Indian people are always wise, Karan.
Karan,
I can see Jyotiraditya raising his hand. He clearly wants to
fault with the
intervene.
Indian media, I think.
Come in, Mr. Sindhya. I'll go back to both
Karan.
Shashi Tharoor as well as Naresh Gujral and Sheshadri Chaudhary. Come in.
On a rare occasion, I must urge my friend and colleague Shashi not to be defensive. I do not buy this theory of anti-incumbency. There are many examples of pro-incumbency in states across this length and breadth of this country. Very clearly, we have failed the Indian people. Very clearly, we have not met the expectations of the Indian people. If we are going to ascribe reasons that we believe we are not at fault with for the debacle, I think then we are turning away and not facing the truth. Very clearly, we have failed on many counts. And I think it's important for us to be able to face that bitter truth, accept it, and then define what is the path forward. There's no point saying anti-incumbency, there's no point saying corruption. All of these have worked in the past, and obviously very clearly we have failed. So let's admit that, and then begins the path of reconstruction.
You know, you're amazingly honest, candid and transparent in that answer, and I applaud you for it. But it contrasts with the rather swift and peremptory manner in which both Mrs. Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi faced the press today. Rahul Gandhi virtually spoke a sentence and a half, Mrs. Gandhi perhaps 2 more, and neither paused to answer questions. And it left the press not just dissatisfied, but almost angry. Do you think your party leadership needs to be more open and to speak in the way you're speaking to me?
Well, I think on many occasions, both Mrs. Gandhi and Rahulji both have addressed multiple press conferences, taken multiple questions from the press. And I think on this day, the very fact that they came out, they both personally took responsibility for this defeat, I think speaks volumes of what they are feeling at this point of time. And I think the very fact that they've come out and done that expresses that they have felt the voice of the electorate. And I think it's now up to us to go back to the drawing board, and as I said very vociferously to you, Karan, recognize our weaknesses, do a SWOT analysis, and work on those strengths and those weaknesses, and go back and reconnect with the grassroots of India.
And would you say that if this isn't done reasonably quickly...
And it's certainly possible, because being down at 46, as you define it multiply in your question to me, is not such a bad thing. Because let's also not forget that the BJP was down to 2 in 1984, and look where they are now. That's the beauty of Indian democracy. That's the beauty of the power of the electorate. Very clearly they're disillusioned with us. Let's accept it, and let's go back with that force that we will win their trust back, and win it back based on our hard work. So I don't see this as a issue for us to be completely demoralized, but in fact we must work with renewed vigor to make sure that we are able to win that trust back.
One quick question before I go to Naresh Gujral. It took the BJP 30 years from the low point of 84 to get to 279 today. Do you see a struggle of decades ahead of you before Congress can once again hope to form a majority government on its own?
Is that question to me?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, no, I certainly don't think so. I think, Karan, that is a dependent variable. The independent variable is what we do in the next 60 months. Mr. Narendra Modi wanted 60 months to be able to show this country what he can do. We too have 60 months, but in those 60 months, we need to do a restructuring of our party and go back and reconnect with the people. The challenge is equal for him and the NDA to perform, and for us to reconnect back with the people with our positive agenda. We must not only look at someone else's house falling down, but we must build our own house with very strong foundations so that people will want to come and live in our house.
Naresh Gujral, you've heard, in fact, the Congress party in the shape and form of Jyotiraditya Scindia being astoundingly honest, transparent and self-critical. There is, however, one area where the Congress candidate went against the grain and surprised everyone, and that's Amritsar. You had offered that seat to Arun Jaitley. The Badal family had virtually guaranteed that he would win it. You tempted him as a result, and he's gone down to a defeat of over 1 lakh. Does the SAD today believe that it is responsible for Arun Jaitley's defeat and may well have cost him the finance ministership, which Mr. Badal was guaranteeing to the people of Amritsar would be his?
I think he could still be the finance minister, but we are totally and completely responsible for his defeat. He became a victim of our, I would use the word, incompetence or disconnect with the people in Amritsar or anti-incumbency, say what you may, but yes, Mr. Jaitley paid the price for our follies.
So would you say you owe Mr. Jaitley an apology?
Most certainly we do. I've already been to his house, but I must say he's taken it in good cheer.
If Mr. Modi still decides that he wants Mr. Jaitley as finance minister, which is of course his prerogative as prime minister to do, would the SED support it even in the face of possible criticism from other people?
We will always be supportive of both the BJP as well as Mr. Arun Jaitley, who we hold in very high esteem. So there is no question. But you know, this brings me to another question, that the next government must learn from the mistake of some governments in the past. First one being that the primacy of the office of the Prime Minister must be re-established. He must be allowed to choose his own cabinet. The coalition partners must not be allowed to induct ministers in the cabinet. That should be the prerogative of the Prime Minister.
Well, just a
because
moment.
in the past we saw
Can I stop you there?
that whenever alliance partners...
The point you're making is actually one that you should be addressing to your own party leader, Prakash Singh Badal, because what you're saying is people like Mr. Badal and people like Mr. Thakare must not insist that Mr. Modi put into the cabinet their choice of person and then give that individual their preference of portfolio. Can you guarantee that Mr. Badal will not insist in that way?
I'm certain Mr. Badal will not insist, because he has also seen the price that the last government had to pay. Many times we saw that when ministers were made at the instance of the party presidents or the chief ministers, then they owed their allegiance back home and were not responsible to the Prime Minister. And it also led to rent seeking sometimes.
Shashi Tharoor, do you accept that the particular problem that is being spoken of by Naresh Gujral, the lack of primacy, if I can so badly put it, of the Prime Minister, the fact that he can be lent upon by his colleagues, the fact that what Dr. Manmohan Singh called coalition compulsion can weigh so heavily, cost you very dearly?
Well, I think there's a real difference between the situation of the Congress party within the UPA and the BJP under Mr. Modi. First of all, the mandate in 2004 was won by a party led by Sonia Gandhi, not led by Manmohan Singh. And so she had the political mandate, he was given the governmental authority. So there was a difference there, which is not present in the case of Mr. Modi, who led the campaign and is also the prime ministerial nominee. Secondly, we didn't have an absolute majority ourselves. We had to accommodate coalition partners who at any point could threaten to withdraw and in effect bring the government down if their whims and desires were not accommodated.
Can I not interrupt you?
In the case of the
would
BJP,
you permit an interruption?
none of their coalition
Would you permit an
partners
interruption?
can bring them down right away.
You know, you could have stood up
I'm just
to those...
saying that's the difference. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if it's such a telling difference, and that's why I'm interrupting you. You could have stood up to those coalition
can I answer
partners.
that?
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Scindia. Mr. Scindia wants to come
Karan,
in.
can
I can bet that his counter will be better than mine. Go right ahead, Mr. Scindia.
Once again, I must beg to differ with my good friend Shashi Tharoor. It absolutely cost us. There's just no two ways about it.
When you say it absolutely cost us, are you simply talking to the fact that coalition partners forced compulsive decisions on the Prime Minister which were wrong? Or are you also talking about what people called the division of labour between Sonia Gandhi and Dr. Manmohan Singh, which Sanjay Baru wrote about?
No, Karan. No, Karan. Please understand. You cannot compare UPA 1 and UPA 2 with the current result. Why? Because UPA 1 and UPA 2 should be compared with
That's
NDA.
precisely what I said, yeah.
Because at this point of time, there is no dependency. Because the BJP can form the government on its own without any ally. And I don't want to take away from what Mr. Naresh Gujral said, because I believe his earnestness. But the fact is today that the SAD has no leverage on the BJP because they're hardly contributing 2 or 3 members. When you are dependent on partners, that's a completely different scenario. But I'm not making an excuse. I'm saying that even if that were the case, and it did happen, so it's very easy for us to look back with 20/20 hindsight. But the fact is that the end result, it did cost us.
Very quickly, Mr. Charlie, I've left you out of this discussion because it was a fascinating discussion where 3 people were actually accepting a measure of culpability which politicians otherwise in public don't do. And I thought that it was useful that the audience should hear it, because that sort of frank self-criticism is actually eye-opening. But I want to put one thing to you. Do you believe that at the end of the day, Mr. Modi will actually stand up even in the teeth of annoying coalition partners? I know he doesn't need them, you have a majority on your own, but will he stand up even when it is a question of annoying a Thakare or a Badal? A quick answer.
Certainly, Mr. Modi will do that, and he has done it in the past, even during the run-up to our election campaign. And I would add here, I'm very glad that we have people like Mr. Shashi Tharoor and even Jyotiraditya Scindia with us. And these are all, I mean, they are politicians, they are parliamentarians who can add value to the government.
Okay.
And Mr. Modi has very clearly said that although we can form a government on our own, it is not only NDA and NDA partners, but I value each and every member of the Lok Sabha, because he represents 125 crore people of this country.
Okay.
So I think this government is going to be very different, and I am glad that we have members like Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia and Shashi Tharoor and Mr. Gujral to be on our side. And you also asked about a question on the opposition.
I'm running out of time, Mr. Charlie.
It's very important to remember here.
I'm running out of time.
It's very important to remember here that all governments need not run only on the basis of ruling party and opposition.
Okay.
We can all be one party together.
All right, we can all
that
be
is going to
one
evolve.
party together. It sounds like a homily that politicians only think of in television studios. Rarely do they seem to practice it in parliament. Maybe we can hope that there's really been a sea change. But today we've had 3 politicians who've been surprisingly upfront, honest and transparent. And I want to applaud all 3 of them for it. It's not easy to be critical, and it's particularly difficult to do it when you're facing defeat. It's so much easier to do it when you're actually victorious. But I want to applaud them for their frankness and their openness. I do hope, gentlemen, we'll see a lot more of that over the next 5 years. My thanks to all 4 of you for joining me. That's the end of this particular episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Goodbye. Good night.